pre-recording videos for the emergency room this time. Now this is my 8th trip for this mold to the emergency room or more. There might be more. I can't breathe, there's lots of symptoms, we'll be making those videos. But in this one I want to tell you why I'm doing these pre-recorded videos. I have trouble speaking when there's pressure on my nervous system or overstimulus. That's cold, touch, flashing lights, weird and loud noises, or overuse of my own nervous system. These are things that can set it off. Or drugs. There's many drugs that can make it worse. It causes seizures, uncontrollable muscle movements, lack of ability to move my limbs, numbness of the tongue, lack of speech, high vocal pitch. These are all some of the symptoms that go along with this pre-existing condition. For 25 years, my voice has gone high, low, in between. My voice sounds different at different times, depending on different stimulus. Also, as for 15 years, during childhood and still today, my shins get cut up, or I should say, scraped up against tables, doorways, bureaus, side bureaus, bed frames, cabinets. When I walk by, sometimes my legs give a jerk a little bit where I don't want them. So I'll put my leg right where it needs to be, but my nervous system will give a jolt and my leg will go out and whack something. Same thing happens with my arms. I'll be walking through a doorway and I'll get a jolt through my nervous system like somebody just electrocuted me for a second. My arm will fly off and then my watch will be shattered because I just hit my wrist into another doorknob. Now, if I'm not wearing a watch, and I still whack it and it hurts like a bitch. I've done that multiple times in my lifetime. Not multiple, hundreds of thousands. Oh my God. I have, like, on my shins alone, I must be on 10,000 bumps and scrapes from this disorder. And on my wrist, I must be at 10,000 as well. I've lost at least 20 watches from this already in the last 10, 12 years. Actually, during childhood, I lost about 10 from this. I had a lot of watches screens break. And it was never from dropping them. They're attached to my wrist. I just whacked it. I would whack it. I would tell people it just broke on a door handle. There's a door handle. Well, why? It just broke. I just bumped into it. Well, why is your body bumping into it? Now, that's a question I wanted to know as a child. Why am I bumping in this stuff? Why can't I feel like everybody else in the skin? Why, when I move my right arm, does my left leg jerk? Why, when my mother gave me a handful of medications, did this start the worst it ever was? I lost my sight. I lost the ability to walk. I couldn't feel my body. My tongue went numb. I couldn't talk at all. My pitch was all off. I couldn't stand up. I crawled over to a pile of newspapers. My breathing slowed down. My breathing slowed down, and I went unconscious. And by the time I was unconscious, oh man, shouldn't have went that far without a breath. When I went unconscious, my mother was on the phone. She didn't want to get me an ambulance. Oh, the air in here is thick. I'm trying to ignore it, that it's really thick, but after 7 years, and Raymond Hill, me, the Department of Health and Human Service lady, people on the outside of the building, people with the pictures, hundreds of people all say, you're gonna die, you're gonna get sick as soon as they see it. As soon as they walk in and see it, as soon as you show them it. But you can't really see it unless somebody points it out on the outside of the building. You can actually. But it's in the cracks of the cabinets. It's in the window frames. And if you have curtains covering the windows, you don't see it till you move the windows. And on another one, the hole is in the window frame on the top where water just comes in. And the mold is so hard to breathe. Oh shit. 7 years. I would like to move out, but thanks to my mother and father and this disability, what I'm trying to describe the symptoms of, That's no possibility. I can't use shelters because my mother and father try to hide my disability, try to hide my mother ODing me and then causing damage to my body. She knew this. My father, she kept on lying to and making sure she kept me moving and not seeing the right doctors. It was a, I don't think my father was complicit in it, but he might be, but I don't think so. I mean, he hated all pills. I doubt he would do this to a child, but my mother, she was crazy with the pills. She was forcing extra medicine into me when I was only 6 years old. I'm not even kidding. She gave me extra Epicac as a punishment. Extra Epicac as a punishment. Fucked up shit, huh? That's my mother for you. Messing around, playing doctor with me. That's basically the sum. Then she dies in 2011 because she was messing around with pills and alcohol. What matches exactly, what she was doing to me. I bet she was taking a lot of the same pills she was giving me. This is very difficult, these videos. They're not easy for me either. People try to act like maybe I enjoy this, but obviously I don't. That would be my mother and my father and his wife. The people who can get away, the people that have responsibility in this, like to make up stories about me. People who want to spend time with me know what I'm really like, but my father and his wives, they never spent the time with me. When I needed food in New Mexico, they weren't spending the time. I got 18 hours out of 18 months of seeing them. From the age of 15 to the age of 19 or 20, I got 8 days a month with them. At the age of 20 to 23, they had no time with them. I had no time with them. At the age of 24, 6 months with them. And then at the age of 24 to 31, no time with them. So they make up fantasies and they spin them and they like to pretend like they have some idea of what's going on. Meanwhile, it's all based off their fantasies. They have no facts, they have no pictures. They just have a bunch of non provable bullshit. Like bringing me to a psychiatrist, telling the psychiatrist 5 different stories, and then getting me diagnosed with bipolar. Or bringing a 5-year-old to the doctors, telling him, the doctor, that he has attachment disorder, all because he won a swimming medal. Now that's crazy. How did my mother do it? She said because my old last initial was on my swimming medal, that swimming medal must be stolen, and that also must mean that I have attachment disorder because that's my old last initial. She had to stretch and stretch her imagination like crazy to make her fucking fantasy fit. And my father does the same thing today when I bring this up to him. He takes a bit of fantasy and he stretches it to fit his needs, based upon no real facts. And any real documentation, like if they go, oh, you were in the hospital for fire setting, how about that? My father put me in there because I ran an experiment. I lit a match near a slug to see if it was fireproof, and I got held down and double dosed with Thorazine while in there. Yes, the same hour they double dosed me on my roommate's word. My roommate said I didn't take my medication. Now, he was a psychotic. He was a patient in there who was schizophrenic and liked to make up stories. They knew this. But the staff member got thrills out of holding kids down and hurting them, so she held me down, had me injected with a double dose of medication for her own thrills. Yeah, is that appropriate for somebody, or should you just take the matches away from your 11-year-old son and tell him not to do it? I mean, if that's how you should treat your sons or your kids if they play with matches, then my nephew, I mean, he only got a talking to by his mother and his uncle. Where's his needle? Where's his hold down? Where's his drugs? I mean, I was no different than half the kids in those programs in schools. Kids were playing with matches. Kids experiment with fire. Everything that I was going through, now that I've worked with other children, I worked with actual children with special needs. I was a teacher's aide for the ECC for special needs children. And I did it for 4 years. Actually, 3.5, 3 years. 4 is pretty close to it. I volunteered for about 2 and then worked for a year and a half on the books, half through a school, half through another school. Worked the school program. And I've seen actual disabled children who are 8 years old. They're going around punching the teacher every day. They're biting the teacher's aides every day. They're fighting with the other kids every single day. They're 8 years old and they can't talk and they're still wearing a diaper. This is not somebody who is me. I am not, as a child, I did not get sent home every single day. This is crazy that my mother was trying to establish attachment disorder, because when you really spend the time with these children, you realize what they're like at age 5, 6, 7, 8. And that wasn't me. At the age of 5, I didn't seem like that. 6, I only seemed to have problems when the drugs and when my mother started drugging the shit out of me. Then I was drowsy. 1 minute she'd make me drowsy during the day. I would go to a birthday party and want to curl up on the floor. And because I'm on downers and I'm only 7 years old, I'm just trying to sleep during my birthday party. And because of this, all the adults want to know if I'm depressed. So my mother pushes a depression fantasy when I'm 7 years old. Yes, my mother gave me pills on an adoption party that was like a birthday party that were downers. I got so down and tired that I wanted to curl up and sleep on the floor. I was really looking for a place to sleep on the floor. At this point, the other people around noticed that she gave me too much drugs, and she wasn't telling anybody about the drugs, so they had no clue what was going on. All they knew is I looked dead tired, like I was gonna fall asleep. I had no facial expression. I'm frowning, and I'm looking at the floor, looking for, they don't know this, but I'm looking for a place to fall asleep. This is not normal. When they ask my mother, she makes up mental illnesses once again. She makes up a bunch of diseases. She doesn't even tell anybody. I just gave him a bunch of pills that will make him tired. That's what just happened. I took the pills and then I got tired. But she's not telling anybody that. She's telling everybody I have depression. And then she's trying to brainwash me into believing her fantasies. And at the age of 7, I don't have a medical degree. I don't have any knowledge. I haven't talked to psychiatrists. The only things I know to be true is what my mother and father tell me. That's it. If my mother lies to me, I believe her lies to be true because I am age 7. At the age of 31, I know my mother was full of shit and she was trying to hide the crime she committed. But at the age of 7, at the age of 10, at the age of 13, I didn't know. I started getting hints and realizing what was going on as from the age of 13 to 31. I got information at 19 that was critical for understanding this. Oh my God, it's so hard to breathe in here. So I'm going to the emergency room today because I'm close to a seizure and I can't breathe and I'm having the mold symptoms again. My roommate's also dizzy. Now, why did this hit me so bad? We closed the windows last night. That's it. If we close the windows in our house, everybody in the house who stays in it for 24 hours or longer starts getting incredibly sore, sick, and dizzy. Anybody. The longer you're in it, the more you feel it. Depending on your pre-existing conditions, it could take a day. Some people feel it after an hour. Some people it takes a couple years, like if you're a smoker. But it's toxic and it's clearly visible from the outside of the building. If you look at the windows, if you look at the mushrooms coming in the floor, which my aunt was supposed to hold on to the pictures, but she cared. My father and my aunt care so little about me that I sent them medical pictures of one of my seizures that I really needed somebody to hold on to. So I put my trust into them to hold the most important photographs I had in case my phone broke. My phone broke and I asked them to resend it to me, which they agreed to do. They agreed to hold on to these photographs that were medical photographs of when I went to the emergency room and had a seizure and of the mushrooms growing in up through the floor. You know what they did? They said they didn't have them no more. They threw away the life-saving pictures that the doctors need for the records. My father and his new wife care so little about my safety and my health, they don't even want to hold on to a photograph that's medically necessary. Because I keep on having seizures and my phones break, so I need somebody to send them back to me. Now I keep hard copies, and then I just take a photograph of them. But sometimes people can steal those, or people go through your stuff. If you have a senile old man that used to like to clean, but now he's too sick to clean, he likes to pick up people's shit and throw it away. And then I have to dig through the trash. I found pictures, paperwork, my mail, and my marijuana all in the trash, or I should say a bag of hemp. It wasn't really marijuana, it was this store-bought hemp that you can, it has a koala on it. It says high levels of CBD, and it's a hemp. But I smoke it instead of weed, so I call it my weed, and people don't always know the difference. That way I can kind of feel a little bit normal, but I don't use the smoke anymore. That was 4 years ago. Now I use the oils on the skin mostly. I sometimes get the capsules, the supplements. But those are my two favorite, rubs and supplement. I don't like smoking. The taste is awful. I'm not a smoker and I don't want to smoke. It makes you cough. Cigarettes taste awful. They're awful for you. Everything about smoking I hate. I'm like the only weed smoker that doesn't like smoking weed. Yes, that's an oxymoron. I don't smoke weed. But I do call myself a pothead because I fit every other neat niche of it. But it's been like 2 years, and I maybe smoked weed 4 times in the last 2 years. And those were all other people who got really special weed that works for epilepsy, so I could actually take it. Very, very rare circumstances. And don't forget, I come from a family of pill popping alcoholics. I've watched my brother, on Percocet and alcohol or muscle relaxers and alcohol. I've watched my mother on Percocet, muscle relaxers, alcohol, Xanax, alcohol, massive amounts of alcohol. I've watched my father get drunk on alcohol, drive home, lots of alcohol. I've watched my whole family, except for I gotta say, my sister seems to handle her alcohol okay on the levels. My father handles large amounts of alcohol better than anybody, but my sister, I don't think, really likes large amounts of alcohol. I think she likes just the right amount. Something I tried to do when I first moved up here, have 2 beers, and it worked. But then I just stopped. I would drink like during holidays or when I'm really bad with the seizures. But then I just didn't like it. It was too hard with my stomach issues. Oh, by the way, yeah, my mother ruined my stomach as a child by giving me multiple overdoses, different medications, Epicac punishments, where she gave me extra Epicac as a punishment. There's so much shit. There's so much shit on. And when I mean Epicac punishments, it sure seems like that what she was giving me on Halloween to make me vomit and get sick that time was Epicac. Also, later she gave me some pills and I got very, very sick on Halloween. She also gave me a cookie on Halloween, and there was another time she gave me a cookie at a friend's house, one of her friends' children's houses, and it was really sketchy the way she did it. It really made it most likely had pills or medicine in it. It's very clear by her behavior. So keep that in mind that my stomach and esophagus hasn't been able. I literally eat rice, oats, graham crackers, saltines. That makes up most of my diet. Bread with hummus, plain hummus. Anything you think of. Oh, I love my rice pudding. My plain rice pudding makes up. Oh, actually, I'm gonna have that for breakfast, I think. Yeah, before I go to the hospital, let's have some rice pudding. But anyways, yeah, so keep that in mind. I have to eat very bland foods thanks to my mother. I can't work. I can't collect Social Security thanks to my mother and father. My mother's to thank for my neurological disorder, my stomach disorder, and my esophagus disorders. But my father's to thank for the Social Security issues, for sure. He with my mother can be thanked why I can't collect Social Security. I can't work thanks to my mother injuring me so much. I can't go to a shelter because my mother and father never wanted to report or get documentation of my disabilities. Instead, they wanted to feed into my mother's fantasies more and more and move me around so the doctors never actually got a read on me. I was moved all around the country And then my mother just threw a bunch of fantasies together at age 11 and ran with it. And then the doctors, by the age of 15, already had a whole file established with my mother, and I had no say on getting that to go away now. I mean, I burned a slug, so I deserved to die. I'm not even kidding. That was basically, they almost killed me in there. They literally did. They gave me a double dose of like 5 medications. I mean, there was actually, it would have been 5 or 4 total. Because during the afternoon, when this happened, I was being administered 2 medications, two. And they gave me a double dose. And when they held me down to give that, they give you an extra shot of Thorazine with them. And I'm prescribed Thorazine as well, Seroquel at a low dose during the day. They're giving me Lamictal. They're giving me Risperidone, and my nipples were leaking milk. And my mother and father could not care less to have a conversation with me about it, or even have a conversation or bring me to maybe a neurologist or somebody for the nervous system, because I can't talk, I can't walk. I mean, that's what the original plan was before we went to Texas. They were working on speech therapy, physical therapy, and why there was a sudden change in my ability to use my body. Then you move me to Texas, New Mexico, and Maine, and everything gets erased, and all of a sudden, all we're doing is my mother's mental illness bullshit. We're feeding into her sickness now. And this is why I'm going to die today. There's no way for me to make a living, so I have to live outside. And somebody with my type of illness who lives outside will have a seizure every day. So I won't be alive for much longer. That's one of the reasons why we're making these videos. And when I go to the emergency room, what you'll hear today, they don't treat me. My mother and father called me a liar and said don't ever listen to him. He makes up stories, they said. So when I go to the doctor and I'm bleeding internally into my testicles, they don't listen. And a lot of my illnesses go back so far that they don't know what to make heads or tails, because the stuff my mother and father said do not make sense. They're up, down, everywhere, multiple doctors on file. They're like we got like 20 to 40 psychiatrists all mixed in with opinions, all with my mother. I mean, it goes up, sideways, down, sideways, up, down, sideways, turn around, this med, that med, this med, that med, this med, that med, Thorazine, Seroquel, Haldol, Lamictal, Risperidone, Remeron. Okay, let's throw you some Xanax. We'll throw you some Adderall. No, the Adderall doesn't work with the, let's put you on antibiotics for 4 years. Whew. Oh man, breathing like this is hard. Let's put you on antibiotics with some Ritalin long acting, and we'll give you some Wellbutrin all in the morning, and then we'll give you 600 milligrams of Seroquel with 150 to 300 of Thorazine with 200 of Trazodone. We'll throw in some Risperidone and Lamictal. We'll give you a day dose of 50 of Seroquel, and then we'll throw in a little bit of Thorazine as well to calm you down from the Ritalin, and then we'll just mix it all together and give it to you and see what happens. Oh, you're passing out with heart racing, with headaches, severe headaches. That's okay. We go give you some more medicine. Here's some Vicodin to bring home from the emergency room. Oh, no, we're going to double your meds. Here's some more Seroquel. That's fucking nuts. And my mother was loving it. She was asking for more meds. She wanted me to be on schizophrenia meds, whatever more she could come up with. She wanted them all. She wanted me on all the meds. Give him all the meds. Give him everything. This was my mother's opinion. Give him, the one that bothers me the most is my mother was pushing for schizophrenic as well. That's one of her lies and fantasies that they wouldn't go along with. The doctors told her to stop the nonsense. No. My father said he doesn't think so. I said absolutely not. I know I don't hear any voices. But yet she kept on pushing me to lie. She kept on telling me that playing with action figures means I'm schizophrenic. She yelled at me and said that I need a repeat after her. Then she also said I need to be on schizophrenic medications like Zyprexa, which she got me on at one time, but they pulled it away because it's very dangerous to give somebody like who's normal these medications, like my mother was doing. So I was just some guinea pig for my mother's experiments. She was making up fantasies and going to call the doctors and teachers with fantasies. But as time went by, like in Worcester, the teachers were realizing it, the doctors were realizing it. But see, that's why my mother loved this Dr. Rosenblum, because this Dr. Rosenblum was writing a book. So he was writing chapter 6 about me, so he wanted as much to write about in this book as possible. So he just talked to her and my father. No matter what I said, I was put in the corner. If I said my mother was lying, he would say, let it go, let it go, let your mother lie. Oh, why do you think your mother's lying? I don't think she's lying. This is what they tell me after I'm trying to tell you guys that my mother's making up stories about me. Are you guys going to help me or not? No, we don't believe that. We think you're angry at your biological mother. No, I'm not. She is making up a story about me, I tell the psychiatrist. And they go, oh, no, see, that's a symptom of attachment disorder, making up stories. Oh, yeah, that's probably what you're doing, right? No, she just tried to convince me that I'm schizophrenic this morning on the floor while I was playing with action figures. She just gave me a whole list of things to say to you that aren't true. She just blamed me for her own drinking. She turned my swimming medal into attachment disorder. I'm a thief, I'm a liar, and it must belong to an African American. She is making up stories. She gave me a full bottle of Epicac as a punishment, and she thinks this behavior is okay. And she's telling her husband that this is perfectly fine to be giving extra medication to a child, and this is destroying my stomach and esophagus. Please, doctor, help me, is what I'm trying to say. And this doctor just keeps on feeding into my mother. Well, we need to finish this chapter 6 first. Yeah, what else do you got for me, Pat? Oh, yeah, he might be a bedwetter. Yeah, that might be something to do with his infrequency with his mother. Yeah. Oh, yeah, he probably has no relationships with women because he can't attach to women, right? Yeah. Even though, meanwhile, I got attached when I was like 6 years old, or 8 or 9 years old, to a Christina Stiers up in the New Mexico mountains. I get attached to women just fine, just not ones that are hurting me. I have lots of attachments to a lot of women. Women are great. I have lots of mother figures. But people that want to poison me or tell stories that are lies about me or talk to my doctors and spin stories that get me hurt or prevent me from using the things that everybody else gets to use, like Social Security or cars, or being able to use my own kidneys or use my own nervous system or use my own muscles or walk or talk. If you take those things away from me, then I'm not going to like it. I'm going to get very upset, and I'm going to want my justice. I'm going to want things to be right. So when my mother decided to poison the shit out of me, not call an ambulance, not bring me to the emergency room, when it was brought up in the doctor's office, hide and manipulate, move me all around the country, and then not pay attention to any of what they were talking about in Westford, totally try to bury it as far as you can, move to Texas, move me to New Mexico, move me to Maine, move me back to Mass, and then make up fantasy after fantasy about me, then bring me to a psychiatrist that doesn't care about really holding my mother accountable for anything I'm saying. If I said there was a gun in the house that wasn't registered, my father comes up with a one-liner. Well, it's an old gun, and nobody ever looks into it. If I say my mother is hitting me, nobody would look into it. But if I said my mother was poisoning me with medication, nobody would look into it. Nobody cares about looking into a little orphan getting crippled by a rich family who's now adopted them. This is common in society. I saw it with Jasmine. She's a little different. Foster child. But her whole life, in and out of hospitals, great kid, normal, unless you drug the shit out of her. Once when you start adding things like Seroquel, Thorazine, giving her Ritalin during the day, then she's downhill because then she wants more drugs. That's part of the problem. We're giving 5-year-olds methamphetamines. We're giving them controlled substances. Oh, oh my God, I can't breathe. I'm talking too much without getting breaths in between. Okay, so yeah, I'm going to the hospital today because all that other stuff happened to me and nothing's been done about it. And now I'm living in mold and it's like I'm underwater. And I got other people who are just trying to fuck with my doctors even more. So when I go to the emergency room, they probably won't do shit but tell me to go back home in the mold. I mean, they can't even write a do not lift order. When I asked for a do not lift order and went to the emergency room or the doctors, I'm excused from gym class, they wrote on a piece of paper. That was my do not lift order. When I was bleeding internally into my testicles and I finally got a doctor to look at it, he first pretended like I was playing some game, but then he said pull down your pants. And you know what the first thing he said was? Oh, this is real. Oh, I didn't know this was real. Oh, I'm not qualified for this. Then why the fuck are you looking at him? Why are you looking? Why am I seeing you if you're not the guy to see? Oh, because they thought that it was a mental illness thanks to my mother and father. They looked up my name and it came up that I must be some mentally ill kid that wants to show off his testicles. And that's thanks to my mother that this doctor had that reaction, and I had to go to the emergency room after emergency room, schedule, wait a month with bloody testicles bleeding internally. I'm not kidding. They did very little testing on me. They never do. Why? Because I come up as some storyteller thanks to my mother, even though I've never ever spun a story about my health in my life. Even when I took cough medicine at the program, and they brought me to the emergency room, I told both the nurses and the doctors that I took cough medicine right off of the bat. I was always wanting to push the honesty boundaries. I was the type of kid who came clean with his father about stuff he did. My father and mother were too stupid to actually catch anything. The only reason why my mother and father knew about some of the stuff I did is I never wanted to hide anything. I kept things in the wide open. If I stole a bottle of wine, I pulled my dad aside and told him I stole a bottle of wine, here it is. If I took something like a cookie at the age of 16 and then anybody asked me if I finished off the last of cookies, I would tell them I did. Maybe not at age 5. I was a normal 5-year-old when it comes to lying, and I was a normal 10-year-old when it comes to lying. White lies, mistakes, stuff like that. But don't also forget, my mother and father like to turn mistakes into lying. And they also turned my swimming medal into I'm a liar and a thief. So even though I'm just like any other normal child, my mother loves to take my accomplishments away from me and turn them into some liar, I'm a thief, I'm an asshole, I'm evil, whatever. And then she goes around spreading this so everybody else treats me shitty. She loved it. She got thrills out of this. It's partly what killed her. She was popping these pills and nobody knew what she was doing because nobody would listen. And my father was hiding the real Patricia, my mother, from the whole family. But my brother knew. I knew. My nephew knew, and I think my sister knew parts. They got glimpses of the real Patricia that I lived with all the time. The Patricia that destroyed my body. That Patricia. Not the fake one that smiles and pretends that she's all sweet. No, the Patricia that gives you an evil look, holds you down, or tries to sneak pills into your food. That Patricia. Fucking okay, I'm done. I can't breathe like this. The air is thick in here. It fucking sucks. I'm talking too much. If I bring the breathing back, I'll be back to normal breathing. Or if I crawl down the stairs and get outside, I'll do better too the next video. But I need to stay in the mold because I live in it all the time. I can't move right now. And I need to make sure the hospital is aware of it. This time, hopefully the last time I have to go. Normally it just happens to me in the morning when I close the windows. But this time we were kind of planning it when we closed the windows last night. So we were kind of planning that this might happen because we know what's happened before, so we know what's going to happen again.